Hari Hari. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. Hare Krishna Mahamantra ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to the divine grace. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. So today we're starting chapter 16, entitled The Two Doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijaya, Cursed by the Sages. And text number 1. Lord Brahma said, after thus congratulating the sages for their nice words, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose abode is in the kingdom of God, spoke as follows. Text 2. The Personality of Godhead said, these attendants of mine, Jaya and Vijaya by name, have committed a great offense against you because of ignoring me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. To commit an offense at the feet of a devotee of the Lord is a great wrong. Even when a living entity is promoted to Vaikuntha, there is still the chance that he may commit offenses. But the difference is that when one is in a Vaikuntha planet, even if by chance one commits an offense, he is protected by the Lord. This is the remarkable fact in the dealings of the Lord and the servitor, as seen in the present incident concerning Jaya and Vijaya. The word atikramam used herein indicates that in offending a devotee, one neglects the Supreme Lord himself. By mistake, the doormen held the sages from entering Vaikuntha, but because they were engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord, their annihilation was not expected by advanced devotees. The Lord's presence on the spot was very pleasing to the hearts of the devotees. The Lord understood that the trouble was due to his lotus feet not being seen by the sages, and therefore he wanted to please them by personally going there. The Lord is so merciful that even if there is some impediment for the devotee, he himself, meaning the Lord, manages matters in such a way that the devotee is not bereft of having audience at his lotus feet. There is a very good example in the life of Haridas Thakura. When Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was residing at Jagannath Puri, Haridas Thakura, who happened to be Mohammedan by birth, was with him. In Hindu temples, especially in those days, no one but a Hindu was allowed to enter. Although Haridas Thakura was the greatest of all Hindus in his behavior, he considered himself a Mohammedan and did not enter the temple. Lord Chaitanya could understand his humility, and since he did not go to see the temple, Lord Chaitanya himself, who is non-different from Jagannatha, used to come and sit with Haridas Thakura daily. Here in Srimad Bhagavatam, we also find the same behavior of the Lord. His devotees were prevented from seeing his lotus feet, but the Lord himself came to see them on the same lotus feet for which they aspired. It is also significant that he was accompanied by the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is not to be seen by ordinary persons, but the Lord was so kind that although the devotees did not aspire for such an honor, he appeared before them with the goddess of fortune. So there are some interesting points here. The humility of Haridas Thakur is overwhelming. And he could understand that if he went to the temple, some other people uh, would not be very happy. So, because he was born as a Muslim or in a Muslim family, uh, he refrained, or he did not enter the Hindu temples. And it says in Hindu temples, especially in those days, that means in the time of Lord Chaitanya, at least 500 years ago, no one but a Hindu was allowed to enter a Hindu temple. Although Harivilas Thakura was the greatest of all Hindus in his behavior, he considered himself a Mohammedan and did not enter the temple. Lord Chaitanya could understand his humility, and since he did not go to see the temple, Lord Chaitanya himself, who was non different from Jagannatha, used to come and sit with Haridas Thakura daily. Here in Srimad Bhagavatam, we also find the same behavior of the Lord. His devotees were prevented from seeing his lotus feet, but the Lord himself came to see them on the same lotus feet for which they aspired. It is also significant that he was accompanied by the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is not to be seen by ordinary persons, but the Lord was so kind that although the devotees did not aspire for such an honor, he appeared before them with the goddess of fortune. All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Very nice points. Text 3. O great sages, I approve of the punishment that you who are devoted to me have meted out to them. I'm sorry. O great sage, I approve of the punishment that you who are devoted to me have meted out to them. So Krishna is saying basically, whatever punishment you're giving to these two persons, Jai and Vijay, I agree. It's quite befitting. And then it says, next 4. To me, the Brahmana is the highest and most beloved personality. The disrespect shown by my attendants has actually been displayed by me because the doormen are my servitors. I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen. Now, this is what you would call a Krishna is turning the tables here. The Jaya and Vijaya have committed some mistake, but because they're the servants of the Lord, he's saying that it's my mistake. And my attendance has, this disrespect shown by my attendants has actually been displayed by me because the doormen are my servitors. That's a very significant statement. Someone who's a servant of a master, if that person makes a mistake, it's the fault of the master, who either hasn't trained them properly, or even if they have been trained properly, still the master accepts the responsibility of their misbehavior. And that's why here Krishna says, I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen. Now, right away, the four Kumaras realized, oh, maybe we made a mistake here. Let's think about this a little bit more. What the attendants or the Jai and Vijay did, acting as servants of the Lord, they might have made a mistake, but now Krishna is accepting that he's responsible for what they did. I take this to be an offense by myself. Therefore, I seek your forgiveness for the incident that has arisen. So now the whole issue becomes much more serious, where Krishna is accepting to be punished for the mistakes that his attendants have made. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Lord is always in favor of the brahmanas and the cows. And therefore it is said, Go Brahmanya Hitayacha. Lord Krishna or Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is also the worshipable deity of the brahmanas. Now see, this is a very important statement when it says the Lord is always in favor of the brahmanas and the cows. So we can see why today there's so much strife and war and killing and destruction going on in the world. It's because there's massive cow killing going on. At least every year, just in America, thousands and thousands of cows are killed to be eaten. And I want you to look up how many cows are, I think it's 55 million a year. How many cows are being killed in the United States to be eaten? Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of bad karma in a place where they do that.
In US, it is 36 million.
Oh, okay, 36 million. Okay. The 36 million cows are being killed in a year in the United States. And that's really bad, really bad. And a lot of that is done in Texas and California, a lot of the killing, a lot of the slaughterhouses. Not only there, but those two big states are killing a lot of cows. Also, I think in Chicago, they kill a lot of cows. They have the big slaughterhouses.
Average cow, before commercial industry, they're killing the Maharaj. The cows are living only for 1.5 to 2 years only, it seems, before they're slaughtered.
Really?
Yeah. And naturally, they can live up to 15 to 20 years.
Yeah. It's really horrible.
2 years they're killing.
So here it says, the Lord is always in favor of the brahmanas and the cows, and therefore it is said, Go Brahmana Hitayacha. Lord Krishna or Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is also the worshipable deity of the brahmanas. Okay, so in the Vedic literature, in the Rig mantra hymns of the Rig Veda, it is stated that those who are actually brahmanas always look to the lotus feet of Vishnu. Om Tad Vishnu Paramam Padam Sadapasyanti Suraya. Those who are qualified brahmanas worship only the Vishnu form of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which means Krishna, Rama, and all Vishnu expansions. Yeah, so we can worship Krishna or all his Vishnu expansions also. And that's why when we decided to have, or I decided to have Balaji as a deity, because he's an expansion of Krishna. He's a Vishnu form of the Lord. Okay, so A so-called Brahmana who is born in a family of Brahmanas but performs activities aimed against the Vaishnavas cannot be accepted as a Brahmana, because Brahmana means Vaishnava and Vaishnava means Brahmana. One who has become a devotee of the Lord is also a Brahmana. The formula is Brahma Janatiti Brahmana. A Brahmana is one who has understood Brahman, and a Vaishnava is one who has understood the personality of Godhead. Brahman realization is the beginning of realization of the personality of Godhead. One who understands, okay, so Brahman realization is the impersonal realization, or the light that's emanating from the body of the Lord. So it's still the Lord, but it's in the first, let's say, level of understanding who Krishna is. And a Vaishnava is one who has understood the personality of Godhead. Brahman realization is the beginning of realization of the personality of Godhead. One who understands the personality of Godhead also understands the impersonal feature of the Supreme, which is Brahman. Therefore, one who becomes a Vaishnava is already a Brahmana. It should be noted that the glories of the Brahmana described in this chapter by the Lord himself refer to his devotee Brahmana, or the Vaishnava. It should never be misunderstood that the so-called Brahmanas who are born in Brahmana families but have no Brahminical qualifications are referred to in this connection. Mm-hmm. So someone has to be not only born as a Brahmana, but they have to act as a Brahmana. They have to have the qualifications of a Brahmana. And the qualification of Brahmana is that he's a worshiper of the Lord, and he does not engage in any sinful activities, and he's always glorifying the Lord. And he doesn't violate any of the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness. Just because someone is born in a family of Brahmanas doesn't mean that they are a Brahmana. One has to be a Brahmana by action, by his activities, not simply in name. A wrong act committed by a servant leads people in general to blame his master, just as a spot of white leprosy in any part of the body pollutes all of the skin. So when a person has let's say, dependence. In other words, of a let's say a genuine devotee. If the family members commit mistakes, the father is accused of not having properly trained the children, father and mother maybe. So anyone who has become a Vaishnava has developed all good qualities of the demigods. There are 26 qualifications mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. A devotee should always see that his Vaishnava qualities increase with the advancement of his Krishna consciousness. A devotee should be blameless because any offense by the devotee is a scar on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's duty is to be always conscious of his dealings with others, especially with another devotee of the Lord. So this is a very important point. In fact, probably one of the best or most important points if you're going to be involved in Krishna consciousness and be called a devotee. And Prabhupada here says a devotee should be blameless. In other words, a devotee should not commit any offense to anybody, and especially another devotee, but anyone in general. The devotee's duty is to be always conscious of his dealings with others, especially with another devotee of the Lord. Why is that? Because if the devotee commits an offense, people may think that it's the fault of Krishna or the spiritual master who has not trained that person properly. So therefore, a Vaishnava therefore should be fully qualified. As stated in Bhagavatam, anyone who has become a Vaishnava has developed all the good qualities of the demigods. There are 26 qualifications mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we have to be careful when we, put on saffron cloth, tilak, and shaved head, and so forth. And people take us to be a devotee. But if we don't act like a devotee, like one time, long time ago, there was one devotee who was, he was a little bit, let's say, passionate. So we were going out on Sankirtan every day, and then one day he disappeared, and he didn't show up for a day or two. And when he came back, I asked him, I said, "Where were you?" He said, "Oh, I was doing some preaching." I said, "Preaching? I said, what kind of preaching?" He said, "I was doing some preaching." "What do you mean, what kind of preaching?" "I was preaching." I said, but you didn't come back to the temple. And where were you?" He said, "I was preaching." I said, "Okay, well, who were you preaching to?" He said, "I was preaching to some people." I said, "Well, were some of those people women?" He said, "Yes." "And you were preaching all night long or what? Because you had to go to sleep also." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, this is nonsense." I said, you deviated. You can't go disappear, preach to women as the excuse. You acted in an irresponsible way. And factually, he did act in an irresponsible way. He made some girl pregnant. And the boy that was born was he was autistic. You see, because the whole thing was illicit. Okay, so we see we should never deviate from our duties. And our duties are always stay in the association of Vaishnavas. We shouldn't go off by ourselves. In fact, Prabhupada recommended that devotees, wherever they would go for preaching or for doing service or whatever, they should always be two devotees together. Never go alone. Because when you go alone, there's no way that, I mean, there's always a possibility of being, you know, forgetting your duty as a devotee and you make some mistakes. So here Prabhupada says, a Vaishnava, therefore, should be fully qualified. As stated in the Bhagavatam, anyone who has become a Vaishnava has developed all the good qualities of the demigods. There are 26 qualifications mentioned in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So we should read, I mean, they're going to explain them, I think, soon. And we should always be very careful about how we act if we call ourselves a Vaishnava. That's a very exalted position. In fact, anytime a person puts on a saffron dhoti with tilak, they have to be very careful because people expect such a person to be a qualified devotee. That's what the saffron cloth means, that they are celibate and they are following the regulative principles of Krishna consciousness. A devotee should always see that his Vaishnava qualities increase with the advancement of his Krishna consciousness. A devotee should be blameless because any offense by the devotee is a scar on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee, see, now that's a very, very important statement. In other words, when people see devotees misbehaving, the fault is given to the Guru and Krishna, because any offense by the devotee is a scar. Scar means like a wound on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotee's duty is to be always conscious of his dealings with others, especially with another devotee of the Lord. So these are all very good instructions. The behavior of the devotee should be humble and always engaged in devotional service, and always be kind and merciful, and always engaged, doing good to others, spreading Krishna consciousness. When a devotee misbehaves, right away, people say, well, it's the fault of the Guru. So that's really wrong, because a devotee wants to always glorify his Guru or her Guru. And when the devotee misbehaves, immediately the people will blame the Guru and say, oh, well, they haven't been trained properly by the Guru. That means the Guru is a nonsense person also. Okay. Text 6. Anyone in the entire world, even down to the Chandala, who lives by cooking and eating the flesh of the dog, is immediately purified if he takes bath in hearing through the ear the glorification of my name, fame, etc. Now you have realized me without doubt. Therefore, I will not hesitate to lop off my own arm if its conduct is found hostile to you. Whoa, this is a heavy, heavy duty statement. I will lop off my arm. So, whenever the devotee of the Lord misbehaves, right away, the fault is attributed to the guru. Now, is that the right thing? No, it's not the right thing, but that's what people will do. And if the guru is if the fault is attributed to the guru, then it goes even further. It's attributed to the God that the guru is representing or following. So we have to be very careful. And here it says, anyone in the entire world, even down to the Chandala, who lives by cooking and eating the flesh of the dog, is immediately purified if he takes bath in hearing through the ear the glorification of my name, fame, etc. So you can take a bath in water, or you can take a bath by hearing through the ear the glorification of Krishna's name, fame, and so forth. So what does it mean, a bath? It means you're getting purified. You get purified the more you hear about Krishna and his transcendental pastimes. Now you have realized me without doubt, therefore I will not hesitate to lop off my own arm if its conduct is found hostile to you. So Krishna is willing to accept full responsibility if his devotees misbehave. Therefore, devotees should never misbehave because it's going to make Krishna unhappy. And he is going to accept the responsibility. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Real purification can take place in human society if its members take to Krishna consciousness. This is clearly stated in all Vedic literature. Anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness in all sincerity, even if he is not very advanced in good behavior, is purified. A devotee can be recruited from any section of human society, meaning anyone can become a devotee, even if they're the lowest person in society. And in other words, there's a saying that the Adama can become a Uttama, yeah. Adama can become Uttama by associating with devotees. Adama means the worst of people, the worst kind of people, and Uttama means the best kind of people. So anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness in all sincerity, even if he is not very advanced in good behavior, is purified. A devotee can be recruited from any section of human society. Now that immediately makes the let's say the culture of genuine Vaishnavas different than the false Brahmanas who claim that you cannot be a Brahmana unless you're born in a Brahmana family. And that's still present today. Still, there are families of Brahmana that consider that, white people can't be Brahmanas because they're not born in Brahmana families. When I say white people, I mean like Americans or Europeans. A devotee can be recruited from any section of human society, although it is not expected that everyone in all segments of society is well behaved. As stated in this verse and in many places in Bhagavad Gita, even if one is not born in a Brahmana family, or even if he is born in the family of Chandalas, Chandalas are people who eat dogs. If he simply takes the Krishna consciousness, he is immediately purified. In Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, verses 30 and 32 to 32, it is clearly stated that even though a man is not well behaved, if he simply takes the Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be a saintly person. Well, yeah, there are many people that are not well behaved, but if they take the Krishna consciousness, chanting Hare Krishna, eating only prasadam, going on Sankirtan, preaching, and so forth, then they should be respected. Even if he is born in a family of chandalas, dog eaters, if he simply takes the Krishna consciousness, he is immediately purified. In Bhagavad Gita 9th chapter, verses 30 to 32, it is clearly stated that even though a man is not well behaved, if he simply takes the Krishna consciousness, he is understood to be a saintly person. Does that mean that he continues to not be well behaved? No. It means that, if he was not behaving well before, but once he takes the Krishna consciousness and behaves properly, then he has to be accepted as a genuine Vaishnava. As long as a person is in this material world, he has two different relationships in his dealings with others. One relationship pertains to the body, and the other relationship pertains to the spirit or the soul. As far as bodily affairs or social activities are concerned, although a person is purified on the spiritual platform, it is sometimes seen that he acts in terms of his bodily relationships. If a devotee born in the family of a Chandala, the lowest caste, is sometimes found engaged in his habitual activities, he is not to be considered a Chandala. In other words, a Vaishnava should not be evaluated in terms of his body. Okay, what would be an example of this? Let's say someone is a Chandala, he is dealing, well, he might be eating meat and he might be doing all kinds of horrible things. So, as long as a person is in this material world, he has two different relationships in his dealings with others. One relationship pertains to the body, and the other pertains to the spirit or the soul. Okay. As far as bodily affairs or social activities are concerned, although a person is purified on a spiritual platform, it is sometimes seen that he acts in terms of his bodily relationships. Well, let's say you're born in a family that eats meat, and eventually you become a devotee. But sometimes you go to see your family, and you sit down with them, and they might be eating meat. You don't eat meat, but they might be eating meat. So it looks like you're acting like the family, but you're not. But it looks like it because you're sitting down with them while they're eating meat and so forth. So, as far as bodily affairs or social activities are concerned, although a person is purified on a spiritual platform, it is sometimes seen that he acts in terms of his bodily relationships. If a devotee is born in the family of a Chandala, the lowest caste, is sometimes found engaged in his habitual activities, he is not to be considered a Chandala. Or what does that mean, his habitual activities? Well, let's say, you have your birthday, so but you're a devotee, but you go home and you spend your birthday with your family. Or let's say you on certain days, you go home and spend time with your family, but they are, eating meat and so forth. You don't eat meat, but they're eating meat and or drinking liquor or whatever. So, in other words, a Vaishnava should not be evaluated in terms of his body. Yeah, I mean, if someone is born in a family of meat eaters and people drink liquor and so forth, or if he's born, let's say, in a very low family, he shouldn't be judged by the body. The Shastra states that no one should think the deity in a temple to be made of wood or stone, and no one should think that a person coming from a lower caste family who has taken to Krishna consciousness is still of the same low caste. These attitudes are forbidden because anyone who takes to Krishna consciousness is understood to be fully purified. He is at least engaged in the process of purification, and if he sticks to the principles of Krishna consciousness, he will very soon be fully purified. The conclusion is that if one takes the Krishna consciousness with all seriousness, he is to be understood as already purified, and Krishna is ready to give him protection by all means. The Lord assures herein that he is ready to give protection to his devotee, even if there is a need, even if there is need to cut off part of his own body. In other words, Krishna is so protective of his devotee that he's ready to even cut off some part of his body to protect the devotee. That means that we should never, as devotees, commit any offense. Otherwise, it's going to hurt Krishna. So we have to be careful. If once we become a devotee, that means that we make vows. No meat eating, no gambling, no illicit sex, no intoxication, and always chanting 16 good rounds minimum every day. There's no maximum, but there is minimum, is 16 rounds. Maximum as much as you want to chant and follow the regulative principles strictly. But if we deviate from that, well, it's like hurting Krishna, and even to the point of cut off a part of Krishna's body, because Krishna takes full responsibility for the devotee, and if the devotee acts improperly, it hurts Krishna. Now, we can always be forgiven, but you can't be always committing offenses and ask for forgiveness. It might happen, you might get that forgiveness once, twice, maybe 3 times, but after that, it's very hard to be forgiven because you're making it a perpetual, let's say, offense. You can be forgiven once, twice, 3 times, maybe 4 times, but after that, you're not going to be forgiven anymore because you're making it a pattern of nonsense. One can be forgiven for accidental fall downs, not for premeditated fall downs. And that has to be understood. Okay, are there any questions? All right.
Question, Maharaj.
Yes.
If the family is eating meat, is it okay to join them even though we don't participate in that activity? If you are there around, how should we act?
Well, it's not very good to sit there and watch people eat meat, whether they're family or not family, because it looks like it's okay to eat meat because my family is eating meat, right? Or my friend is eating meat. So it weakens, in a sense, your, let's say, determination to strictly follow Krishna consciousness. It's just like, if you watch like a lion who catches a prey, like a deer, and starts eating it, that has some effect on you by watching that brutal, savagery of the lion on the deer. And deers are usually very friendly. They don't bother anybody. They avoid human beings. They avoid everything, and they're always considered to be nice. They're not mean. They're not going around grabbing smaller living entities and eating them. Like the lion. So when you see a lion, eating a deer, it can affect us seeing such a thing or even hearing about it. So we should always be in good association. Like, for example, you have these films of animals and animals being eating other animals. By watching those films, see, it can affect you, especially for young kids, seeing that. Because it's brutal, it's mean, and it can, let's say, desensitize one to such violence. Desensitize. Yeah. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's not. It's a show, but there's something on Netflix that's called Wildlife, I think, and like there are like creatures and they're eating other creatures. They're just like basically what it is. They're just showing that.
Yeah, there is
Yeah,
the National Geographic Discovery, so that's what they do. And then, in fact, lots of people who eat meat use that as an argument, saying that, see, naturally,
Yeah.
everybody, like the creation is such that
Yeah.
one animal lives on another animal. Jivasya Jivanam, something, there is one scriptural verse also.
Yeah.
So they use that as the argument
To eat meat.
to eat meat.
We are not animals.
What?
The statement
We
is
are not
Jivasya
animals.
Jivanam.
Well, we're not meant to. See, the animals have a whole bunch of canine teeth. We only have 2 canines. And therefore, we're not really meant. And by the way, animals' intestinal tract is very short, whereas the human intestinal tract is very long. Human intestinal tract and the abdominal area is like 25 feet long, right? The animal's intestinal tract is hardly, I don't think more than, well, you can look it up, 4 feet long or something like that. And the animals have a whole bunch of canine teeth, it's sharp teeth. We only have 2 sharp teeth. The rest, the animals, yeah. Yeah. But they have more canine teeth, but they might have 4 really big ones. Yeah. What does it say?
Intestine 16 feet, Maharaj. Large intestine 5 feet.
So that's 21 feet, right? So if you take your intestine out, the long one and the short one, it'll go from here to way out there, right? And that's all wrapped up like this. So when you eat meat, the meat putrefies, and in such a long, intestinal tract.
In
the intestinal tract of a carnivorous being like a lion, their intestinal tract is very short.
Yeah. Here it says, Maharaj, in the carnivorous animals, the small bowel is said to be only from 4 to 8 times the body length, while in the herbivorous animals, it is from 25 to 75 times the body length.
Yeah, the herbivores, they only eat grass.
Yes, yeah. It's like 4
Yeah,
to 8 versus 25 to 75.
yeah, that's for human beings also. It's about 25 feet long. So you see, we're not meant to eat meat. And there's 2 indications of that. Physical indications. The body of a carnivore, or one who naturally eats meat, like lions or tigers or whatever, their intestinal tract is very short compared to human intestinal tract. And they have a whole bunch of canine teeth. for ripping apart flesh. We only have 2 canine teeth, and we have a very long intestine that's sometimes 25 feet. So what happens if you eat meat? The meat will putrefy. It'll become, let's say, a source of sickness by getting stuck in or not being properly digested. You digest the proteins with what do you call it? Acids. The acid is hydrochloric acid. So in order to digest meat, you have to have hydrochloric acid. Look that up. You have to have hydrochloric acid in the stomach. And the hydrochloric acid has to also be neutralized. Otherwise, it can burn a hole in your intestinal tract. So it's best not to eat meat at all, because there's so many mistakes that can be made. So what does it say? Hydrochloric acid.
Acid is in gastric juice that digests the proteins in the stomach by denaturing them, which causes them to lose their function. Hydrochloric acid also activates pepsin, an enzyme that digests proteins, by lowering the stomach pH to between 1.5 and 2.
That means very acidic. And that acidity has to be neutralized. Otherwise, you'll get this burning effect coming up your esophagus, and then that can hurt you. So that you won't be able to eat in the future because it ruins your esophagus. So people who eat meat, they have to be very, very careful, because to eat the meat, they have to have an acidic saliva. And saliva normally should only be alkaline. But when it becomes acidic, you get acid reflux. You have this acidic juices coming up out of your stomach and goes into your throat. And it can permanently denature or affect your ability to eat, because it burns your esophagus. So
Differently, some of the glands produce thick protective layer of mucus that prevents the acid from attacking the wall of the stomach.
yeah.
If you eat excessively, or it produces excessive acid, or it stops producing enough mucus.
Yeah, it's called acidophilus, acid reflux. Yeah. And it's very dangerous because it burns your esophagus. You can't eat anything. And all meat leaves an acid residue in your esophagus and your stomach. So when you eat vegetables, they don't leave an acid residue. But you eat meat, there's going to be an acid residue that's remaining after you've sort of, and you can never really fully, a human being can never really fully digest meat. And because the intestinal tract in a human being is very long, like 25 feet, it can putrefy. And that's why people have bad smells, from their mouth and passing bad air all the time. And that's due to food that has not been properly digested, and it's putrefying. It's getting contaminated inside the intestines by, there's become constipated and so forth. And you don't feel right, you get headaches, and all kinds of things go wrong when you are eating meat and not being able to digest it properly. And we're not meant to eat meat. We don't have equipment to eat meat. We only have 2 canines, A dog, look, count how many canines the dog has. Why don't you look that up? I think dog canines, like over 20. And the intestinal tract of a dog is very short. It's not long, like the human being. The dog has 4 canine teeth only. What's that? What's that?
Interesting. Even it says humans also have 4 canine teeth and dogs also have 4.
Really?
An adult dog should have 42 teeth total. The tops, that's 20 on the top of their jaw and 22 on the bottom. But they have 4 canines.
Interesting. And human beings, they only have 2, right?
Humans also have 4.
They do?
It says
I don't think so.
most humans have 4 canine teeth,
Really?
1 in each quadrant of the mouth.
Oh, that'd be up and down. Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, that means we can eat meat. Don't do it. So, I mean, like dogs, they only have 4 canine teeth?
Even lions have 4 now.
Yeah, lions also have 4,
Wow.
but their large ones are 4.
Mhm. Dogs. Dogs have 4 also.
8 actually.
Dogs,
Lions.
lions. Yeah, because they're meat eaters. They need that.
Carnassial teeth. They're cutting through his tough skin and tendons.
Right. Is that only lions or are there other?
Yeah, I said so certain tigers or something.
Yeah, so their body is made for eating meat. Our body gives you the possibility to eat meat, but it's not recommended.
So there's also, now the mother is saying, jaw movement is also contributes to determining meat eaters sideways versus.
They have 4 canine teeth, tigers.
Tigers, 4 canine teeth. We have 4 canine teeth too, right?
Their canines are much more sharper and
Okay.
big.
So there's this data point that apparently jaws that move sideways,
Yeah.
The animals that eat only
Meat.
they don't have sideways movement.
Uh,
So they just have like
up and down.
up and down.
So they need stronger teeth.
So why did God give the possibility? Namani Mataji's question. Why did God give the possibility to eat meat to humans in the first place?
Why?
Hmm.
Well, no, he didn't give the possibility to eat meat. He gave possibility to eat vegetables. Right.
No, but in the fact that there is even canine teeth, like that's a potential argument that.
Well, I mean, it's good that you have canine teeth when you want to eat an apple.
Yeah.
Right. Something hard, peanuts, things like that. So it gives you the possibility to do that. Otherwise, it's harder if you don't have any, I mean, everything you eat is not soft, right? You have people that eat hard things also. They need.
I mean, this is probably another argument is that Lord is only trying to fulfill the desire of the animalistic behavior of the human. So, because God is only in a way that fulfilling the human desire. That's why he sent us to the middle world to be.
Well, look, you have some canine teeth if you really want to eat meat.
Correct. So it's basically for those people who have fallen and they really want to act like an animal in a human life.
Yes.
The Lord wants to facilitate that also.
Yeah.
So be it.
Well, look at the gorilla. Why don't you look up gorilla? And gorillas are able to eat nuts. They're as strong, as hard as iron. So just imagine how strong their teeth are. Gorillas. What kind of teeth do they have? I don't even know. I'm not even sure. Are gorillas carnivores? I'm not sure. Or they're omnivore. They can eat meat and they can also eat vegetables or fruits. What's it say?
Yeah, so the gorillas have 32 teeth, and of that, there is one canine.
Gorillas are primarily herbivores,
Right.
meaning they eat mostly plants. Their diet consists of leaves, stems, bamboo shoots, vines, bark, and fruit from herbs and shrubs. However, western lowland gorillas also eat termites and ants and some insects. Highland gorillas eat mostly leaves and roots, while lowland gorillas eat mostly fruit. They
Yeah.
are herbivores.
Yeah, herbivores, right. And look how strong they are.
And they have huge canine.
Okay.
So time check, Maharaj. I think there are some questions and comments.
Okay, go ahead.
So Ramani Mataji or Namid Mataji want to unmute and ask your questions.
Go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribol, Maxi.
Haripol. My question is it because human beings we have the marginal potency, Maharaj, when in the human body, where we can turn towards spirituality or we can turn towards materialistic desires. Similarly, God has given us the possibility to go either way, but He's inspiring us to go on the recommended path. Does that make sense, Maharaj? Is that how we should think about it, or am I not thinking about this the right way?
Well, yeah, you always, as a human being, you always have the choice. Either you go this way or that way. Either you follow Sanatana Dharma or you don't follow. Both ways, Krishna knows what's going to happen to you. So if you choose to eat meat like a tiger, right? By the way, they have these meat softeners. You ever hear about that? There are. Unfortunately, I know about it because I used to be a butcher. Because first of all, cow meat is not very good. It's very tough to chew and to digest. Beef from, let's say, bulls or steer is much better because it's marbleized. Marbleized means there's a lot of fat in the meat of the bull, so it's more tender. When you cook it, you don't have to. If you cook like cow meat, it's hard to eat. It's much more. It doesn't have any fat. It's called marbling. Look that up. Marbling. It doesn't have a lot of fat in the flesh of cows, but in the flesh of steers, there's a lot of marbling or a lot of fat mixed in with the meat. So when you cook it, it's more juicy and it's easier to chew and so forth. So that's why most of the time people don't eat cow meat because it's tough to chew and swallow. they eat steer meat, like sirloin steak, etc. What does it say?
The white flecks of fat that appear within the muscles of red meat,
Yes.
also known as intramuscular fat. The fat streaks resemble a marble pattern, which is how marbling gets its name.
Yes.
Marbling is one of the main criteria used to judge the quality of meat.
Yeah, the more marbling, the better it is.
And higher levels of marbling generally indicate a better cut of meat.
Yes.
Marbling makes beef more tender, flavorful, and juicy. Steak with high levels of marbling tend to be softer, moisture, and richer.
Right. So if you eat cow meat, it's not very good because not very little marbling in the cow meat. You eat steer meat, it's a lot of marbling and it's very juicy and so forth. People, you eat a sirloin steak, it's more expensive and people, like it better. Unfortunately, I know about these things because my family had a grocery store and I used to work in the meat department. So unfortunately, I had to learn these things. The best thing is don't eat any meat. Then,
Yes.
like for example, there are many rules when you eat meat. Why? Because you have to cook it at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time to make sure there's no let's say bad what do you call it? Infectants in it. Meat can be infected very easily. But therefore, there are a lot of rules. You have to cook meat at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time. But an apple, there's no rules for eating apples. You don't have to heat it up. You don't have to do anything. You just eat it, right? So there's a problem with eating meat, and a lot of rules about it. You have to keep it at a certain temperature for a certain amount of time, etc. So best thing is not to eat meat at all. And you don't have to follow any rules. You just eat apples and fruits, and you become a fruitarian and a vegetarian. So
Sanjay, you had a question? I think Sanjay Prabhu raised hand.
any question? Okay, so today's lesson is don't eat meat.
Hare Krishna. So we'll wrap it up.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Haribol, Haribol.
Just canines and words.
Yeah, so stay away from hippos. If they grab a hold of your arm, that's the end of your arm. They can take it. They could separate your arm from your body in like 1 minute. Not even a minute. They have tremendous, powerful jaws, very powerful jaws, and they eat a lot. Hippos.
Are they herbivores or?
Yes, that's a good question. They can eat meat when they're being attacked by other animals. And they kill those animals and they might eat them. But normally, I think they're herbivores.
Yes, they're primarily herbivores, but they can be considered omnivores because they're seen eating meat sometimes.
Yeah, omnivore means you can eat either vegetables or meat. Omni means you can go both ways. Normally, they eat just leaves and other things like that.
They can seem to be eating the carcasses of animals killed by other hippos, crocodiles, or other predators.
Okay. So they're omnivore. That means they can eat anything. Omni means anything. But most of the time, they just stick to grasses and
Grass, 80 pounds of grass each night.
wow, 80 pounds, huh? Wow,
You have to raise a hippo.
you go probably, you
Bankrupt.
go bankrupt. You have 2 hippos, you go bankrupt. Haribo, Haribo, Gosh Prabhupada, yeah.
Krishna is maintaining them all.
Oh yeah. Hay is expensive now.